18. Actors who ruined their careers and lost everything. They were once untouchable, loved by millions, paid millions, trusted with our screens, our stories, and our culture. But in Hollywood, fame is fragile, and sometimes it only takes one decision, one accusation, or one moment of lost control to destroy everything. Tonight, we're not talking about rumors or internet noise. We're exposing the real turning points that ended legendary careers and erased fortunes built over decades. This is Legends of Black Excellence, where truth matters more than comfort. Watch closely. Stay to the end and ask yourself who truly deserves a second chance. Bill Cosby. For decades, Bill Cosby was one of the most trusted faces in American entertainment. As the creator and star of The Cosby Show, he changed television by presenting a black family defined by education, humor, and stability. During its peak from 1985 to 1990, the series averaged more than 30 million viewers per episode and ranked #1 on American television for 5 consecutive seasons. Cosby reportedly earned over $1 million per episode, placing him among the highest-paid performers of his era. That image began to fracture as long-standing allegations of sexual assault resurfaced publicly. Over time, more than 60 women came forward with similar accusations, describing incidents that allegedly occurred across several decades. In 2018, Cosby was convicted of aggravated indecent assault and sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison, becoming one of the most prominent figures held accountable during the early years of the Me Too movement. Can decades of positive cultural influence excuse deeply personal harm? In 2021, Cosby's conviction was overturned by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court due to a violation of a prior prosecutorial agreement, not because the court ruled the accusations false. Although he was released from prison, the professional consequences remained severe. Television networks permanently removed his shows from syndication universities, rescinded honorary degrees, and former supporters publicly distanced themselves. Cosby's downfall did not happen because of a single mistake, but because of a pattern that destroyed public trust. The legacy remains. R. Kelly. For years, R. Kelly was one of the most powerful figures in American entertainment. Alongside a highly visible screen presence, his dominance in music made him nearly untouchable. By the early 2000s, he had sold more than 75 million records worldwide, written hits for other major artists, and generated millions annually through touring, publishing, and licensing. His name was synonymous with commercial success, and his influence extended across radio, television, and award shows. Behind that success, serious allegations persisted. Accusations involving sexual abuse and exploitation of underage girls followed Kelly for decades, often dismissed or ignored by the industry. That changed when multiple investigations converged with public testimony. In 2021, a federal jury convicted him on 9 counts, including racketeering and sex trafficking. In 2022, he received a 30-year federal prison sentence, making his fall from power permanent and legally final. After his conviction, the consequences accelerated. Concert tours ended permanently, partnerships were terminated, and platforms stopped actively promoting his catalog. Court filings revealed severe financial distress, including unpaid taxes and frozen assets despite decades of massive earnings. Unlike celebrities who retreat quietly, Kelly's career ended through formal judgment and incarceration. R. Kelly's collapse was not sudden, but it was absolute. Fame delayed consequences, but it did not prevent them. His story stands as one of the clearest examples of how unchecked power, once exposed, can dismantle an entire legacy, leaving no path to redemption within the entertainment world. Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett was once viewed as a rising force in American television. As a breakout star on the hit series Empire, he gained national recognition, critical praise, and a rapidly growing fan base. At the show's peak, Empire drew over 17 million viewers per episode, and Smollett reportedly earned more than $100,000 per episode, positioning him as one of the most promising young actors of his generation. His public image blended talent, activism, and cultural relevance. That momentum collapsed in early 2019. Smollett reported being the victim of a violent hate crime in Chicago, claiming he was attacked because of his race and sexual orientation. The story initially sparked widespread sympathy from celebrities, politicians, and the media. However, investigators later concluded that the incident had been staged, alleging Smollett paid acquaintances to carry out the act. He was subsequently charged with filing false police reports. When trust is broken so publicly, can it ever be repaired? In December 2021, Smollett was convicted on multiple felony counts and sentenced in 2022 to jail time, probation, and fines. The legal outcome ended any immediate chance of career recovery. His role on Empire was terminated, future projects disappeared, and industry support evaporated almost overnight. Unlike scandals driven by private misconduct, Smollett's case unfolded under constant media scrutiny, turning him from a symbol of injustice into a cautionary tale about credibility. The damage extended beyond his career, complicating broader conversations about real victims of hate crimes. Today, Jussie Smollett's name is no longer associated with artistic promise, but with one of the most self-inflicted collapses in modern television history. Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors was widely viewed as one of the most promising actors of his generation. Trained at Yale School of Drama, he built a reputation for intensity and discipline through acclaimed performances in The Last Black Man in San Francisco and Lovecraft Country. By 2022, his career reached a new level when he was cast as Kang the Conqueror, the central villain of Marvel's future cinematic plans. Industry analysts described him as a long-term franchise anchor with projected earnings in the tens of millions across film and endorsement deals. That ascent stopped abruptly in March 2023. Majors was arrested in New York following allegations of assault and harassment involving a former partner. As the legal process unfolded, studios moved quickly. Major campaigns were paused, endorsement partners suspended contracts, and Marvel began distancing itself from the actor even before a verdict was reached. In December 2023, Majors was found guilty on misdemeanor assault and harassment charges. Within hours, Marvel Studios formally ended its relationship with him, removing the cornerstone of his career trajectory. Other planned projects quietly disappeared and casting opportunities dried up almost immediately. Unlike slow-burning scandals, Majors' downfall was defined by speed. Within a single year, he went from award season favorite and blockbuster centerpiece to an industry risk few studios were willing to assume. His case illustrates a modern Hollywood reality. Rising stars face shorter grace periods and faster consequences than ever before. For Jonathan Majors, a career built on momentum collapsed at its peak, leaving uncertainty where inevitability once stood. Will Smith. For more than 30 years, Will Smith represented one of Hollywood's safest and most profitable brands. Rising from television fame on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he transitioned into film stardom with blockbuster successes like Independence Day, Men in Black, and Bad Boys. Between the late 1990s and 2010s, Smith became one of the industry's highest-paid actors, earning an estimated $20–40 million per film, and maintaining a rare reputation as both family-friendly and globally bankable. That image unraveled on March 27, 2022, during the Academy Awards. After comedian Chris Rock made a joke referencing Smith's wife Jada Pinkett, Will Smith walked onto the stage and slapped Rock live on international television. The moment was broadcast to over 15 million viewers in the US alone, instantly becoming one of the most replayed incidents in Oscar history. Can a single emotional decision erase decades of goodwill? The consequences were swift. Smith resigned from the Academy and received a 10-year ban from all Oscar-related events. Several projects were delayed or quietly shelved, brand partnerships cooled, and his carefully cultivated image suffered significant damage. Although he later issued public apologies and won an Oscar the same night for King Richard, the victory was overshadowed by controversy. Unlike scandals involving criminal charges, Smith's downfall was rooted in perception. His case demonstrated how reputation, not legality, often defines survival in Hollywood. While his career has not ended completely, Will Smith lost something far harder to recover than box office power, public trust. For an actor built on likability and relatability, that loss proved devastating. Cuba Gooding Jr. Cuba Gooding Jr. experienced one of the fastest rises to stardom in modern Hollywood. His career peaked in 1996 when he won the Academy Award for Jerry Maguire, delivering an acceptance speech that instantly became pop culture history. Following that win, Gooding commanded leading roles in major studio films, earned multi-million-dollar salaries, and was widely viewed as a dependable box office presence throughout the late 1990s and early 2000s. At one point, his annual earnings reportedly reached 7 figures, supported by high-profile film and television work. That momentum gradually weakened, then collapsed under serious allegations. Beginning in 2019, multiple women accused Gooding of unwanted sexual touching at nightclubs and social venues in New York City. He was arrested and charged with misdemeanor sexual abuse, and additional accusations followed soon after. Although Gooding denied wrongdoing, the legal proceedings became prolonged and highly publicized, keeping his name tied to controversy rather than performance. In 2022, Gooding pleaded guilty to 1 count of forcible touching, avoiding jail time, but formally accepting responsibility in court. By then, the professional damage was already done. Studios quietly stopped casting him, planned projects disappeared, and offers from major networks dried up. Unlike sudden scandals, Gooding's decline unfolded slowly, marked by silence rather than headlines. Today, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s career serves as a reminder that awards and past success do not provide immunity. Once perceived as a charismatic leading man, he became a cautionary example of how credibility once compromised can permanently eclipse talent in the entertainment industry. Nate Parker. Nate Parker's career was once positioned for historic significance. After years of supporting roles, he stepped into the spotlight as writer, director, and star of The Birth of a Nation 2016, a film that premiered at Sundance and set records by selling to Fox Searchlight for $17.5 million, the largest acquisition in the festival's history at the time. Parker was widely praised as a new visionary voice, and many believed he was about to become one of Hollywood's most influential black filmmakers. That momentum collapsed almost immediately. Shortly after the film's debut, a 1999 rape allegation from Parker's college years resurfaced. Although he had been acquitted in a criminal trial and was never convicted, the case returned to public discussion during a period when Hollywood was reassessing power, consent, and accountability. Media coverage intensified, interviews became strained, and the narrative around the film shifted away from art toward ethics. Should past allegations, even without a conviction, determine a creator's future? The impact was severe and measurable. The Birth of a Nation, expected to be an awards contender, grossed only $16.8 million worldwide, failing to recoup its production and marketing costs. Planned Oscar campaigns were abandoned, and Parker's rapid ascent came to a sudden halt. Studio support evaporated, future directing opportunities stalled, and his name became associated with controversy rather than creative promise. Unlike many downfalls driven by new misconduct, Parker's career unraveled because timing and public perception collided with unresolved history. His case illustrates how Hollywood, once eager to crown a new leader, can retreat just as quickly when controversy clouds confidence. For Nate Parker, opportunity arrived and disappeared within the span of a single season. Brashear Y. Gray. Brashear Y. Gray rose to fame almost overnight as Hakeem Lyon on the hit television series Empire. When the show debuted in 2015, it became a cultural phenomenon, averaging more than 17 million viewers per episode in its first season. Gray's portrayal of the troubled but talented youngest son resonated strongly with audiences, turning him into a breakout star. Industry insiders viewed him as a rare crossover talent, capable of balancing acting, music, and youth-driven appeal. His salary reportedly climbed into the 6-figure range per episode, and his future appeared wide open. That momentum unraveled through a series of troubling personal incidents. Beginning in the late 2010s, reports surfaced of erratic behavior, financial instability, and strained professional relationships. The most damaging moment came in 2020, when Gray was arrested in Arizona and charged with felony assault and domestic violence after a standoff involving his wife. The case drew national attention and immediately shifted public perception. Although Gray later entered legal proceedings and court-ordered programs, the professional damage was irreversible. His role on Empire ended with the show's conclusion, and no major studio projects followed. Casting opportunities dried up, music prospects faded, and industry support quietly vanished. Unlike stars whose careers decline gradually, Gray's fall was abrupt and highly visible. Brashear Y. Gray's story reflects the fragile nature of early success. Without a long established reputation or deep industry relationships rising, actors often have little margin for error. In his case, personal instability overshadowed talent, transforming a symbol of youthful promise into a cautionary tale about how fast Hollywood can move on when confidence is lost. Columbus Short. Columbus Short's career once reflected steady progress rather than overnight fame. He gained early recognition through dance-focused films and supporting roles before reaching mainstream visibility on the political drama Scandal. At its peak, the series averaged over 9 million viewers per episode, and Short's character Harrison Wright positioned him as a reliable presence in one of television's most influential shows. With network stability, industry connections, and rising visibility, he appeared set for long-term success. That trajectory changed through a pattern of personal and legal troubles. Beginning around 2013, reports emerged involving volatile behavior, substance abuse issues, and domestic disputes. In 2014, Short was arrested following an altercation in a Los Angeles bar and later faced domestic violence allegations related to his marriage. While some charges were eventually dropped or reduced, the accumulation of incidents raised serious concerns for studios and insurers. When controversy becomes repetitive, does talent still matter? ABC responded decisively. Short was written out of Scandal before the start of its 4th season, effectively removing him from the show that had defined his career. Unlike public scandals that explode and fade, Short's exit happened with minimal spectacle but maximum consequence. Casting offers slowed, leading roles disappeared, and attempts at a comeback remained limited to small, independent projects with little visibility. Columbus Short's downfall illustrates a different kind of career collapse. It was not triggered by one headline moment, but by erosion of professional trust. In Hollywood, reliability is currency. Once that confidence is lost, even capable actors can find themselves quietly sidelined. For Short, the cost was not just a role, but momentum that never fully returned. Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard built a reputation as one of Hollywood's most intense and unpredictable performers. His breakthrough came with Hustle and Flow 2005, which earned him an Academy Award nomination and positioned him as a serious dramatic lead. Soon after, Howard appeared in commercially successful films, such as Crash and Iron Man, commanding high salaries and critical attention. At his peak, he was reportedly earning several $1 million per role, and studios viewed him as both bankable and artistically credible. That momentum began to fracture due to off-screen controversies. Over the years, Howard faced multiple allegations of domestic violence, supported by court records and restraining orders, though outcomes varied by case. While some incidents occurred earlier in his career, their cumulative impact became harder for studios to ignore. At the same time, Howard developed a reputation for being difficult to work with, often clashing with producers and executives. The breaking point came after Iron Man 2008. Despite being a major part of the first film, Howard was replaced in the sequel following contract disputes and reported tensions with Marvel Studios. Losing a role in what would become the most lucrative franchise in film history proved devastating. Although he later found success on television with Empire, that resurgence was temporary. In recent years, Howard publicly announced his retirement from acting, citing dissatisfaction with the industry. Whether voluntary or forced, the result was the same: a career that never recovered its early promise. Terrence Howard's story demonstrates how talent alone cannot sustain longevity when controversy, conflict, and instability overshadow professional reliability. Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey spent decades building a reputation as a dependable entertainer, rising from stand-up comedy to become one of the most recognizable figures in American television. His career expanded through sitcoms, game shows, and hosting duties, eventually placing him at the center of multiple franchises. By the early 2010s, Harvey was hosting Family Feud, running a successful radio program, and earning an estimated 8-figure annual income. To many viewers, he represented stability, discipline, and professionalism. That image suffered a major blow in December 2015 during the Miss Universe pageant. Broadcasting live to millions worldwide, Harvey mistakenly announced the wrong winner before reversing the decision minutes later. The moment went viral instantly, generating global ridicule and damaging his credibility as a live event host. When trust is shaken on the world's biggest stage, can authority ever feel the same again? Although Harvey publicly apologized and avoided immediate cancellation, the incident permanently altered how he was perceived. Networks became more cautious, international hosting opportunities narrowed, and his image shifted from polished veteran to punchline. In later years, additional backlash followed: controversial comments on relationships and social values which critics viewed as outdated. While not criminal, those remarks further divided public opinion. Unlike sudden scandals, Harvey's decline unfolded through erosion. He did not lose everything overnight, but he lost goodwill. Endorsements cooled, partnerships ended quietly, and his role in mainstream Hollywood narrowed. Steve Harvey remains visible, but his influence no longer carries the unquestioned authority it once did. Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown became a familiar face to American audiences at a young age, rising through family-friendly television in the late 1990s and early 2000s. He gained wide recognition for his role on Disney Channel's That's So Raven, a series that regularly drew over 3 million viewers per episode, and became one of the network's most successful franchises. Brown's comedic timing and expressive energy made him a standout, and industry observers believed he was well-positioned for a smooth transition into adult roles. That promise slowly unraveled after his Disney years ended. As steady acting work declined, Brown began facing personal struggles that spilled into public view. Over the years, he dealt with multiple arrests, including charges related to drugs, domestic disputes, and probation violations. His legal troubles were accompanied by increasingly erratic behavior in interviews and on social media, which raised concerns among casting directors and producers. Unlike actors whose careers collapse after one defining scandal, Brown's decline was gradual but relentless. Opportunities faded not because of a single event, but because trust eroded over time. Studios rely heavily on reliability, and Brown's unpredictable conduct made him a risk few were willing to take. Attempts at comeback appearances were brief and failed to regain momentum. Orlando Brown's story reflects a familiar Hollywood pattern. Early fame without long-term support can become a burden rather than a foundation. Once celebrated as a bright young talent, he became a cautionary example of how quickly childhood success can turn into isolation when personal struggles go unaddressed and professional structure disappears. Gary Coleman. Gary Coleman became one of the most recognizable child stars in American television history almost overnight. As Arnold Jackson on Diff'rent Strokes, he dominated prime-time television in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The show regularly attracted over 20 million viewers, and Coleman's catchphrases turned him into a cultural phenomenon. At his peak, he was reportedly earning up to $100,000 per episode, an extraordinary figure for a child actor at the time. Behind the fame, however, Coleman's reality was far less glamorous. Born with a congenital kidney disease, he faced lifelong health complications that affected his growth and required ongoing medical care. As he transitioned out of childhood roles, acting opportunities declined sharply. Worse still, financial mismanagement and disputes with his parents led Colman to sue them for mishandling his earnings, a lawsuit he won, but which permanently fractured his support system. What happens when fame arrives before adulthood is ready for it. Colman's adult life was marked by instability. He struggled to secure consistent work, took low-paying security jobs to survive, and became a frequent subject of tabloid coverage due to legal disputes and volatile personal relationships. Despite brief reality television appearances, none restored meaningful career momentum. His public image shifted from beloved star to symbol of child celebrity exploitation. When Gary Coleman died in 2010 at just 42 years old, reports revealed severe financial strain and limited assets. His story stands as one of Hollywood's most sobering cautionary tales, proof that early success without protection or guidance can leave lasting damage. Colman didn't just lose a career, he lost the future that fame once promised him. Flex Alexander. Flex Alexander carved out a solid place in early 2000s television as the charismatic lead of the UPN sitcom One-on-One. The show ran for 5 seasons, 2001-2006, and consistently performed well with younger audiences, making Alexander a recognizable face in primetime comedy. With steady network exposure, endorsement opportunities, and crossover appeal into stand-up and hosting, his career appeared stable rather than explosive, but built for longevity. That stability quietly unraveled after the series ended. Unlike actors who collapse amid headline-grabbing scandals, Alexander's decline was shaped by financial strain and career mismanagement. In 2010, he and his wife publicly confirmed filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, reporting debts in excess of $1 million. The filing exposed how quickly television income can disappear once a hit show ends and residuals slow. As money pressures mounted, major acting opportunities failed to materialize. Networks shifted away from multi-camera sitcoms, and Alexander struggled to reposition himself within a changing industry. Attempts to revive momentum through smaller roles, hosting gigs, and motivational speaking never restored his earlier visibility. Casting directors increasingly viewed him as tied to a specific era and format that television had moved beyond. Flex Alexander's story highlights a less discussed Hollywood reality. Careers don't always implode, they can simply fade when financial planning, timing, and adaptability fall out of alignment. He did not lose his career through crime or controversy, but through the slow erosion of opportunity. In an industry that rewards constant reinvention, standing still proved just as costly as making the wrong move. Jaleel White. Jaleel White achieved a level of fame few television actors ever experience, and he did so before reaching adulthood. As Steve Urkel on Family Matters, White became one of the most recognizable characters in American pop culture. At the show's height in the early 1990s, it regularly drew over 20 million viewers per episode, and Urkel's catchphrases turned White into a household name. His popularity was so overwhelming that a character originally planned for a single appearance became the centerpiece of an entire series. That success, however, created a long-term problem. White became inseparably linked to one role. As Family Matters ended, casting directors struggled to see him as anything other than Urkel. Despite his range voice work and consistent professionalism, offers for serious adult roles never materialized at scale. The industry's perception hardened, limiting him to guest appearances and animation rather than leading live-action parts. When a role defines you completely, is it fame or a trap? Unlike many fallen actors, White was not undone by scandal, addiction, or legal trouble. His decline was structural. Hollywood moved on from multi-camera sitcoms, and nostalgia became both his lifeline and his ceiling. Attempts to rebrand himself as a dramatic actor arrived too late when networks had already fixed their expectations. Jaleel White did not lose everything in a single moment. He lost something more difficult to recover: creative freedom. His career stands as a reminder that extreme success can be just as limiting as failure. In Hollywood, being unforgettable can sometimes mean being unable to move forward. Chrisette Michele. Chrisette Michele emerged in the late 2000s as a respected voice in contemporary R&B, blending jazz, soul, and thoughtful lyricism. She earned a Grammy Award in 2009 and collaborated with major artists while maintaining a reputation for musical integrity. Though not a traditional movie star, Michele crossed into film and television appearances, expanding her profile within the entertainment industry. By the early 2010s, she was touring consistently, releasing charting albums, and enjoying steady visibility across music and media platforms. Her career shifted abruptly in January 2017. Michele chose to perform at the presidential inauguration of Donald Trump, a decision that ignited immediate backlash. Many fans and industry peers viewed the appearance as a political endorsement at a time of deep national division, particularly within Black creative communities. Within days, radio support declined, bookings were canceled, and public sentiment turned sharply negative. Michele later explained that her decision was motivated by a desire for unity rather than politics. But the explanation failed to reverse the damage. Concert attendance dropped, label momentum stalled, and collaboration offers diminished. Unlike scandals tied to legal wrongdoing, her downfall stemmed from perception and timing, making recovery especially difficult. There was no court verdict, to outlive only a fractured relationship with her core audience. In subsequent years, Michele openly discussed depression and emotional distress resulting from the fallout. Despite attempts to reintroduce her music independently, mainstream traction never returned. Her story illustrates a modern entertainment reality in an era of heightened cultural awareness. A single public decision, right or wrong, can permanently alter a career. Chrisette Michele did not lose her talent, but she lost the platform that once amplified it. Laman Rucker. Laman Rucker built a career that promised steady ascent rather than instant superstardom. Trained in classical acting and theater, he gained recognition through recurring television roles before becoming widely known for his performances in Tyler Perry-produced films and series, including Why Did I Get Married and Meet the Browns. During the late 2000s and early 2010s, Rucker was viewed as a dependable leading man, particularly within faith-based and relationship-driven dramas that resonated strongly with older American audiences. His image was grounded, disciplined, and respectable qualities that suggested long-term sustainability. However, that momentum never fully translated into broader Hollywood expansion. While peers leveraged similar platforms into mainstream studio films, Rucker remained closely associated with a narrow creative lane. As audience tastes shifted and Tyler Perry's production model evolved, roles became less frequent and less visible. Without scandal or legal trouble, his career stalled quietly rather than collapsing publicly. Is consistency enough when the industry demands constant reinvention? Rucker continued working steadily, but outside the cultural spotlight. Attempts to branch into independent films and motivational speaking maintained professional relevance, yet failed to restore his earlier momentum. Casting decisions increasingly favored younger faces or more controversial personalities, leaving dependable performers like Rucker on the margins of mainstream conversation. Laman Rucker's story represents a different kind of loss. He did not self-destruct through misconduct or poor judgment. Instead, he lost something less dramatic but equally damaging: industry urgency. In Hollywood, being reliable is valuable, but being replaceable is costly. His career reminds audiences that success can fade not only through mistakes, but through missed transitions, limited range perception, and an industry that rarely waits for quiet consistency to catch up. Kanye West. For nearly 2 decades, Kanye West was more than a successful artist. He was a cultural force. His influence stretched across music, fashion, film, and advertising, reshaping how celebrity power functioned in modern America. By the late 2010s, West had moved far beyond albums and tours. Through the Yeezy brand and partnerships with Adidas and Gap, financial analysts estimated his net worth at over $2 billion. making him one of the wealthiest entertainers in the world. Few figures held more creative and commercial leverage at the same time. That dominance collapsed rapidly in 2022. In a series of interviews and online posts, West made repeated anti-Semitic statements that triggered immediate backlash. The response was swift and unprecedented. Adidas ended its Yeezy partnership, Balenciaga cut ties, Gap pulled remaining inventory, and major agencies dropped representation. Adidas alone accounted for a significant portion of his wealth, and industry estimates suggested West lost between $1.5 and $2 billion in net worth within weeks. Unlike earlier controversies that were framed around artistic provocation or mental health, this time, there was no corporate tolerance and no slow fallout. Projects were canceled, media platforms distanced themselves, and West's access to mainstream distribution narrowed sharply. While he continued releasing work independently, the infrastructure that once amplified his voice no longer stood behind him. Kanye West's downfall was not the result of declining relevance or outside sabotage. It was self-inflicted, happening at the height of power. His story illustrates a modern reality. Even the most successful figures can lose everything when credibility, accountability, and restraint disappear at the same time. Fame gives power, but it also magnifies every flaw. The stories we've explored show how quickly success can collapse when judgment fails, pressure builds, or accountability arrives late. Some careers ended because of crimes, others because of choices, ego, or silence at the wrong moment. What makes these stories uncomfortable is that talent was never the issue. Character, timing, and responsibility were. At Legends of Black Excellence, we don't erase achievement, but we don't ignore consequences either. So here's the real debate. Should greatness be separated from personal failure, or are they forever linked once trust is broken?